Hello again, everybody. My name is Matt with Gardens of Babylon. Here today to talk to you a little bit about fall and winter annual containers. Down here at the store, we get a lot of people asking. I've had my geraniums, my petunias. They're kind of out the door as we get into November and December. Things get a little cooler. What can we do? We like a little bit of color by our door or patio or porch. We'd like to do something, we're just not sure what. And there's a lot of different ideas for temperate zone climates, kind of like ourselves in Nashville, Tennessee here, that you can do. And really, we're going to talk a little bit about everything, really. But before we get started, as far as plants and color-wise, always a big proponent on starting out with good soil in that container. The better your soil, simply the better your container will do. The more blossoms, the thicker the growth, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, the case exactly holds true for each season. So to get started on a really sound potting mix, I like to kind of make my own formulation of some of the things that I think all gardeners should have lying around anyways, which is your starting off with your foundation of your peat-based potting soil. Nice loose and drainage, helps to retain moisture really well. To that, I'll do about a 50-50 with potting soil mixed in with a little bit of compost. Some of my favorites are either chicken compost or mushroom compost. This is worm castings right here, really dark, rich product, great for mixing in containers or vegetable beds. And then to that mixture, I'll add a little bit of an organic slow-release fertilizer that will slowly release a lot of its nutrients over a period of time. 4, 6 to even 8 months, 10 months during the container flowering period. So I'll usually make these three elements, mix them all up really, really well, and then use that as my foundation for the flowers over here. I'm going to talk a little bit about these guys. So for Nashville and the Tennessee area and surrounding areas, the pansy is kind of king in the fall and winter time. It's one of the few flowering plants that will continually go all throughout our winter time and bring in all different shades of yellows, reds, oranges, purples. It's just a really great flower. Doesn't really even get too tall. Great for kind of tucking them into containers or landscape beds, just for adding a little bit of pop of a color throughout the winter time. Really, all your container plantings are made up of three strong elements: your vertical element, your mounding element, and your trailing element. And two of those elements are found in this hanging basket, which is the mounding and the trailing. And the vinca is the trailing element that remains evergreen in the wintertime. For this bigger container over here, we have a couple different elements going on. In fact, I think we've accomplished all three elements of a really strong container with some different plants. I'm going to talk about these guys. Again, you got your pansies, which are kind of your flagship foundation color planting. Onto that, we've done asters, fall and winter asters. Asters have a really long blooming cycle. You can use annual or perennial asters for that use. Another mounding type plant. You can even use things like ornamental cabbage and kale, a really great way of putting in some unique textures into your planting mix. You can use things like long blooming perennials, kind of like coneflower. We got that in the mix. Heuchera is a really great fall perennial foliage. Things like ajuga, another really good one for fall foliage, and there's even some evergreen ferns for shadier pots that are really great for adding a little bit of interesting texture. You see here a little bit of a wispy grass that I really love. It's called Carex toffee twist. Adds just a little bit of a wispy nature to it. Kind of planted it in the middle like most vertical elements are, just to give it a little bit more of a classy appearance. And then behind that you have some ornamental millet, which stays green for most of the early winter time and it'll brown out, but still is really quite captivating with the tall seed pods up here. And then even over here, you can add even a little bit of edible arrangement into that, with this being ruby red chard. So it's not only beautiful, but it's also practical because you can harvest it, and it's one of my favorite winter greens. And then, so a lot of these kind of add into the mounding. Your millet and your grasses are kind of more your vertical element. They'll definitely grow taller than your pansies. And then as far as the spiller element, you can use things like vinca or ivy. One other of my favorites is called Creeping Jenny, which is this golden perennial in most areas, annuals in some colder climates, but it's really fantastic at kind of hugging the ground if in the landscape bed, but in pots it does just a really good job as far as falling out and spreading and just kind of maintaining the trailing element. Maintenance on some of these containers is sometimes just going around picking out some of the dead, dying limbs. Pansies can be cut back various times of the wintertime to kind of help promote good bushy growth on those guys, but this potting soil has definitely been amended with a fertilizer to keep a lot of these guys looking good for the winter months. But that's just some of the things to keep in mind when you're doing fall and winter containers. And you know, you've started with a good base of soil. In the spring and summertime, when all these guys have reached their end, you can remove those and start add a little bit of an organic fertilizer or fertilizer mixed into the potting soil. You don't have to change out your potting soil every year. Once you have a good foundation of potting soil and compost, you can just add a little bit more fertilizer to that for your summer crop, and you'll be in good shape. For more ideas on this and other ideas in the world of gardening, feel free to check out www.gardensofbabylon.com. Again, my name is Matt. Thanks for watching and have a great day.